Welcome back to part 3 of making your Ariadne Zipper Clutch by Mote LLC.com. Right now we're going to skip past making the pockets. That is the part that comes up next in the instructions, but like I said before in the previous videos, I like to make sure that my pockets are lined up on the outside. So we're going to skip past making the front zippered pockets. Those are those two vertical pockets on the front panel. We're going to move on to the next part, which is assembling the main front panel. You're going to take both pieces of G that are mirrored. You're going to be stitching them wrong sides together all the way around with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. The same with both pieces for your collar piece H. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to stitch all the way around with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now that you got both of these pieces sewn together, go ahead and take your scissors and trim around the edge to make sure that all the edges are even on both pieces. Next, for the assembly, you're going to take pattern piece E and you're going to be taking your collar H. You're going to be laying your collar face down. You're going to line up the top edge of your collar with the top edge of piece E. And here's what you need to make sure to pay attention to. Those two notches that you cut should be 1/4 of an inch away from the ends of these corners here. These two notches should be 1/4 of an inch from both of these corners. Right. Go ahead and use some clips to hold it in place. Now what you want to do is you're going to sew from slit to slit across the top using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. And there's the fixed stitch that I'm going to use to secure that. All right, so now we've gotten the top part of our collar attached to that middle piece. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to fold your collar down so that this extra side here is now going to be along this top edge here. You're also going to be sewing it with an 1/8 inch seam allowance, but this is what you should see. That cut that you made earlier, now it should now form a square on that top corner, and then you want to go ahead and clip that in place to hold it. If you do not make your snips 1/4 inch, then you will not be able to pull your collar all the way over to the edge of E. So make sure when you make that snip in your collar that you make it deep enough. All right. And you're going to do the same thing on both sides. So once again, the free hanging part of the collar, you're going to open it and rotate it so that it is against the side of E. And you're going to clip that in place. Now when you stitch this side, you will see on the right hand side that it does not come all the way down to the bottom. That is fine. You will have other parts that get sewn on here, so don't worry if this doesn't come all the way down to that notch. Just remember, your notches at the top need to be cut at the 1/4 inch, otherwise you will not be able to rotate them and clip them down. So you're going to sew both of these with 1/8 inch seam allowance. There we go. Sewn at 1/8 inch seam allowance. But now you see that your collar is now attached to middle piece E. And you should have both of those corners should look like a square 1/4 inch if you have your snips cut the right size on your collar. Next, you're going to go ahead and lay piece E down. You want to go ahead and roll your collar back out the way because now you're going to start putting together the front. So just go ahead and fold that collar back out the way. You're going to take piece G, have it with your notch on the right hand side, the straight edge on the left. You're going to line it up underneath the edge of the collar, and you're going to line it up with this long side here. Go ahead and clip that in place. So when you're clipping this together, you'll notice that there is a little bit of overage of piece G over piece E. It hangs off a little longer on that front panel. Don't worry, that'll be addressed later. You're going to go ahead and top stitch this at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. After you go ahead and get G layered on top of E, you are going to notice that that piece is a little bit long and it does overhang a little bit on the top. Don't worry, that'll be addressed. You're going to go ahead and take the left side of your zipper that you prepared, your 7-inch zipper. This is the ones that I showed you, either one how to staple or how to stitch. You're going to take this zipper and you are going to line it up with the edge of this as well. Sometimes people find it easier to do these two pieces first and then come back and put your zipper on top. Now, at this point, if it helps, you can use double-sided tape to help put this zipper on. Now, with this zipper, you only want to have a little bit of this zipper showing afterwards, so make sure that you have the edge of this zipper tape up against the edge of these pieces here. Many of you are familiar with Wall-Wax Hyperstick tape. That is my tape of choice. It comes in a variety of widths. I'm only going to use 1/8 inch Hyperstick. You can see it is very thin. That way I won't have to worry about getting any of my needle to gum it up. I'm not going to lay it right against the edge because that's where I want to sew at. Peel off the protective film. Now, this zipper also needs to be at the top edge, and I'm going to put my zipper So now that you have piece E with piece G laying on top with the notch on the right and your left side of your zipper tape all lined up against the edge, go ahead and make sure you have all of that clipped into place. Now, if your zipper tape is a little wider than normal sized or average size zipper tape, then you may want to move your zipper tape to the left about 1/8 of an inch. And this will only be because later on when you go to put your pieces together, it may space the front of your jacket out a little bit farther than you desired. Now, this is not something that is in Renee's pattern. This is something that I observed when I chose the zipper tape that I did for a previous bag. So this is just something to be mindful of. You're only going to want to have just a slight bit of your zipper tape showing once this is all fully installed. You do not want to have a big gap of zipper tape showing. All right. Well, the next step that we go to, we're going to be laying another piece of the front on top. We're going to be laying piece D on top. And here's how to visualize it before you move on. Piece D will be stitched. This entire side here will be stitched to this bag, starting from that corner at the top all the way down here. You're going to be overlapping this piece by 1/4 of an inch on top of your zipper tape. If you have more than 1/8 of an inch of zipper tape showing after you overlap this over this edge, you will have too much zipper tape showing and it will make the front of your bag a little bit wider than you desire. So make sure that when you put your pieces together, you can put on your two pieces, your E and your G, and then go ahead and do an 1/8 inch basting stitch, and then put on your zipper, and then have your zipper hang off the edge of about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to say that again. Baste E and G together at the 1/8 of an inch, and then when you put on your zipper, have your zipper hang off the edge by about 1/8 of an inch. That way, when you go to attach D on top of here, you won't have a thick piece of your zipper tape showing. That showing is not a big deal cosmetic wise, but it will make your jacket wider when you go to put this all together, right? So on mine, I do have it even, but I'm going to go ahead and measure this while I'm talking about it. I can see here that my zipper tape is 1/2 inch wide. I only want maybe between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch to be showing once this is all sewn together. So that is something I have to make sure to make note of. I have everything stacked and ready to sew. Now, since I have my zipper foot on here, I am going to sew this from the bottom up because it's easier because of how I have my zipper foot on here, right? But to make sure that I have this folded down, I'm going to use my awl to hold this in place. That's the nice thing about awls is they can hold stuff in place when your fingers can't go there. All right. I like to stitch a little bit past that zipper, but I'm still within that 1/8 inch seam allowance, so that's fine. All right, so now we have our zipper on the left side attached. And now, while this collar is still folded back out the way, this is where we're going to take piece D, which is that side of the jacket. We're going to make sure that it overhangs on top of this by 1/4 inch. If you don't know how much 1/4 inch is, make sure you can just use a marking tool and either put it on top of your zipper and draw a line, or if you need to, turn over the back of your piece here and draw a line. And now this means that you might have to put your piece on upside down, but that's okay. And I'll show you what it looks like from this side. So let's say I want to do it from this way. I'm going to take my ruler. I've drawn my line D, and I want to overlap it this way. So I'm going to just flip this over really quick. And this means when I go to put this on here, I want to make sure that I'm coming all the way over to where I drew that line at when I put this on. Right? You want to make sure you bring it all the way over to that line. Now, this is another part where they say having double-sided tape will definitely help you, because what I can do now is I can just put a strip down there, and then I can affix it on here. So like before, I'm using a thin 1/8 inch double-sided hyper stick, and I'm going to put it just to the side of that line, because this is 1/4 inch wide of an overhang, but this sticky tape is only 1/8 inch. That's half of that distance. And I want to make sure that I don't go over more than that, because remember, I'm basting this on with the 1/8 inch seam allowance. All right. If you don't need to make that line on the back and you're good at, guesstimating here, or you can go ahead and draw your line on here, that's fine. Or you can just do it this way. All right. So I put that on there. I think I'm going to trim down this little piece right here. I can, because we've already stitched that. We've already stitched that into the seam. All right. This is the top of D. This is the bottom. The curved edge is the bottom. This flat edge is the top. You want to make sure that it's even with the top edge of E. Okay. So lay that down right next to the line. you need to pick it up and reposition it a little bit, you can. Just a little bit more. I find this to be the easiest method using the hyper stick because the hyper stick is sticky enough to hold it in place, but not too sticky to where I can't, you know, move it over just a little bit if I need to before I really stitch it down. All right, there we go. I'm going to go back and stitch this whole entire strip right here. And I'm going to be top stitching 1/8 of an inch away from this edge right here of this front panel. Okay. And if you can't tell roughly how far 1/8 of an inch is, flip your piece over on the back, because remember, you did do this 1/8 inch away from the edge, and your front is overlapped by 1/4 of an inch. So you could just actually stitch down those same stitching lines if you need that help. All right. I'm just switching my zipper head. I like to use my zipper foot for most of this bag. I'm just comfortable using it. I would say definitely use all the feet that came with your machine. Get comfortable with using them. It will help you get much better at making bags. All right, here we go. This is where that collar and the zipper are right there. So slow. Don't just try to hammer through it. If you're using a domestic like me this time, you want to make sure that you're doing the job, but you don't need to be rough with your machine to get the job done, all right? And as you can see now, we're done attaching the right side of the bag to the front. And you can see here that if you follow the 1/8 inch marker on your throat plate, you just sewed down the same line that you just sewed when you attached the E and the G and the zipper, right? So let's go ahead and pop that collar back out like that and move on to the next step. So now we're going to move on and we're going to assemble the other portion of the front. You want to go ahead and get piece C, which is that lapel. And this piece here, I'm going to lay this down so you can see this clearly. This piece here will be sewn to this piece here, but it will be sewn face down and against the edge of E underneath. Piece E, this is what you're going to line up that straight edge of C2. Now you will have a portion of your bag, piece G, showing down here at the bottom. That is fine, that is normal, that is what you want, because you need to be able to catch the edge of this. Before you stitch this down, you're going to be stitching this with the 1/4 inch seam allowance down this side here. But before you do this, sometimes it is easier to go ahead and put on the right side of the zipper. This lapel here will be the lapel part that is folded back and showing this way. And this lapel here, G, will be the one that is folded back and showing this way. So if you want to make sure that you do not stitch too much of G in there, fold this back out the way like this. Just, it doesn't have to be specific, just fold this back out the way so you know that you are not going to catch it underneath when you stitch this down you don't want to catch past this notch. This notch is there to help you catch the bottom of it, but you don't want to catch any of the rest of it. So what I like to do is either clip these together, fold this back, fold this back, and put a little clip or something here to hold it. Or I just wait before I even put that on there. I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to hold my finger where this notch is at. Not at the bottom edge of the notch, but at this top edge of the notch. I'm going to hold my finger there. I'm going to take and bend this part of the lapel outward. And then I'm just going to slide a little clip on here. That will help hold it out the way so I don't sew it. Let me go ahead and prep my lapel for the other side. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take the other half of the zipper, I'm going to apply a strip of that thin wall wax hyper stick. Now when you put this on, you're going to be putting this zipper tape right side facing up on top of the back side of C. Now, because this zipper is not fully functional, you're not going to be zipping it all the way up, you can take the edge of this zipper and you can put it as close to the top as you want. You can have it down a little ways so it looks more realistic. Like if this was a real jacket zipping up, you don't have to have it come up that high, but I like mine to be kind of high up here. Now, when I put this zipper tape on top of piece C, you only want it to hang off by about 1/8 of an inch, which means you're, once again, like this other side, you only want a thin piece of your zipper tape to be showing. So I know I want the top to be about right here. So you see here when I turn it over, I have just a very little bit of that zipper tape hanging off. Once I put my zipper tape on top of the back side of piece C, you only want a little bit of that showing. And you see here, it's just a little bit more than the 2 stitches where the coils are at. I'm actually going to move it over just a little bit. I think I'm going to leave it, I'm going to leave the zipper face down and leave this panel piece right side up to help me line that up. There we go. So here you can see now, I've repositioned my zipper tape, and I have very little bit, just 1/8 of an inch, showing on the back side. Now that I have that piece on there, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to lay this along the side, and I'm going to clip it in place, and then I'm going to stitch it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to have the top edge of this. I'm going to have C all the way up to the top. I'm lining it up right where the collar for H leaves off at. That's where I'm lining mine up at. And I'm going to clip it. Some clips. Now, because there is a little bit of a bulk in here, right? We have this folded over. Because there's a little bit of bulk right there, you do want to be careful of that when you go to stitch. Remember, we're trying to hold that back as much out the way. You only want to catch just a little bit of this bottom piece here. If you catch the rest of the collar, if you catch the rest of this collar higher than that, then your collar won't fold out like it's supposed to, okay? And you can see on the back, it does have a little bit of overhang on the back too as well. sew slowly through those thicker parts. If you need to hand crank your machine, do that, but don't force it. Now that we have that attached, we have our zipper on. We are going to be attaching the left side of our jacket. This left side lapel right here and this straight edge here need to line up with this lapel and the straight edge on this side here. So if you want to use double-sided sticky tape, go ahead. If you want to just use clips, you can do that as well. So I'm going to start at the top edge. I'm just going to put a clip right here on this side here, because these are going to be even. Now keep in mind, when you lay these pieces together, this flap right here will align with the edge of the collar, and it should go all the way up to the top to meet the edge of that, right? So this should meet with the top. So if it helps to line the rest of this up, lay your piece down, lay that down where it should be, and then put a clip in it to hold it, to help you hold it there in place, right? And you will be stitching this down, but that's just a little helpful piece to something to do is when you put this on here, put this down, you're going to line this, you can line this up with that top corner edge right there. Put a little clip in there to hold it, all right? And then you're going to have this lapel lining up. Pull it back out the way. This lapel is going to line up with this edge. Like I said, if you want to use hyperstick to help you do this, you can. Now to do this, you might have to get creative in how you fold your bag out the way. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and I'm going to fold this entire part of the bag out the way. You can go ahead and take that clip out of your other lapel as well. All right, so we have that lapel now stitched down on the back side. We've stitched up the front, we've stitched around the lapel and down to this corner here. Now you want to make sure that this piece here is overlapping the side of your collar in piece E by 1/4 of an inch, same as the other side. And then you're going to be top stitching this at 1/8 of an inch from the edge of this flap. You're going to be top stitching 1/8 of an inch to the side, right? Overlap your pieces by 1/4 of an inch, top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. Also, if it helps, double-sided sticky tape. I don't know if you can see it too well, but here's where it's overlapped by 1/4 of an inch. That 1/4 of an inch is the same size as that little cube that you had that you would cut when you were putting these two together. It should cover up that entire little cube now that you had right there on the back side of that collar. Now you want to go ahead and top stitch with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And if it helps you to do this, go around to the bottom edge of this collar. Once you get down to the bottom of this line, fold this collar up. You can stitch around maybe 2 stitches. Not going to go around 2 stitches, but if you want to go around to help secure it around this collar, maybe 2 stitches around. I'm just going to do this next one. I'm going to file it. Just helps give it a little extra added stability, that's all. So now you have the front of your jacket, and you should have both lapels. Go ahead and cut some of these wild strings. So now you have your collar and you have both lapels done. We can go ahead at this time and slide on your zipper pull for this front zipper. Now you will notice that your zippers are not even. That is fine. You're going to end up cutting off the excess anyways. All right. We have a zipper pull on now. And we have our lapels. Nice. So a lot of times people put this together and then they're like, hey, I can see the back side of my zipper tape on here. I want to see the front. With the nature of the way this is made, you're not going to see the front. You're going to see the back side of your zipper tape on this side, and you'll see the front side of your zipper tape on this side. So at this point now, I'm just going to go ahead and fold both of these up. I'm going to go ahead and zip this up. And once again, here's something else you're going to notice, that your zipper tape is not even at the top. Remember, I said you can move this, you can put this zipper tape on where you like. You can move it closer to the top. You can have it farther down. You can have it wherever you like. But if you have it up to the top, then you get more of your zipper tape to show on there when you go to have it riveted down. All right. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to be working on your front pockets. If you need to interface your pieces for your pockets, go ahead and do so. I will be using waterproof canvas with mine, so there won't be any interfacing to do. You're going to take one of your zipper lining pieces. You're going to be measuring 1.5 inches over from the short edge, and then draw a line that is 5 inches long. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half to get the middle. Just use my fingernail to crease it. I want to come over 1.5 inches. And I want to draw a line that is going to be 5 inches long. I know already that this is 6 inches wide. So that's going to be stopping 1/2 inch shy of both sides. So from the 1/2 inch mark here, and then 1/2 inch from this end over here. And then we're going to move the over 1/2 inch, and we're going to do that line again. So 1/2 inch from each end and 5 inches long. All right, and then you're just going to go ahead and complete those boxes there. And this is going to be your square that you're going to use to sew around the zipper hole for your vertical pockets. We're going to go ahead and repeat this with the other lining. Now, if you use chalk, here's just a tip. If you use chalk, you can place your pieces on top of each other. Don't move it around a lot, just place it straight down on it. And then just lightly rub or tap on the back side of the fabric. Because sometimes if you got a really good line, it will transfer some of that line already to your other piece. All right? That way, if you don't need to trace it all over again, if you have a pretty good chalk line, then hey, that's pretty good. No need to add more chalk to your fabric, especially if you're using light colored chalk with a dark colored fabric like this. All right. So you're going to go ahead, draw a line down the middle. And then when you get close to the end, maybe about ½ an inch from the end of each of these, you're going to stop and then make a triangle to both corners. Some people are asking, what is this? This is going to be your cut line. Now, if you're familiar with doing this already, then it won't be anything new. But if you're not, this is how you will cut these lines that you're drawing on here, because that will help make the passageway for the zipper to be in place, and then also help you flip it to the wrong side. If you are familiar with making bags as well, you might not need to draw these lines. You'll just, you know what you're doing. All right. At this point, we want to go ahead and line up our pieces with the jacket. Now, I'm going to take, and I want to lay this on top of here, but what I want to do is I'm going to take this piece here, because remember I cut this hole out. I'm going to lay it on top of here, and I'm going to move this piece of fabric around until my box, until the box I drew is lined up with that. And when it's there, I know it's in the right place. So now I want to go ahead and put a couple of clips on it to hold it in place. If you have some longer clips or pins, you may want to slide 1 or 2 of those on there as well. After you do this, you're just going to go ahead and stitch around that square. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to repeat and do the same thing for this side. And you're going to go ahead and repeat the same thing for the left side of the chest. You're going to go ahead and grab your lining. You're going to grab your piece here. You're going to lay it on top, and you are going to move this piece, this lining piece, around until it is lined up with that hole. Now, before you go ahead and sew these both, you can always lay your ruler on here to make sure that you have them lined up across from each other. You can also measure from the bottom edge up or even. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew around both of these squares on both the right and the left side. Now we're going to do the same over here. Tell me. All right, so now you see that we have both of these pieces sewn on. We have the right and we have the left. Go ahead and cut that line down the middle and then out to both corners. You want to make sure you clip as close to those corners as you can when you do this. If you don't, your bag layer will pucker when you flip it right side out. All right, so make sure when you come down and you clip to these corners, make sure you get as far to those corners as you can, just shy of clipping the threads. Okay. You're going to get as close to those corners without actually clipping the corner. And then you're going to be feeding this through the hole. Now, if you get that tool, like I had earlier, the brayer, to help roll this, that is a good idea. You can also use the edge of any straight edge. That'll help as well. Like the straight edge of a ruler, or the side of a blade for your scissors. Because you're going to want to press this, finger press this. If you're using woven fabrics, you can definitely iron this. But you're going to be trying to do this as much as you can. You're going to roll this to the outside, or roll it to the right side, I guess you could say. Now here's a tip. If you are using vinyl, you can warm vinyl up using a hair dryer or a heat gun. I have a heat gun, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to just focus on pointing it at the front of my vinyl. But then what I'm going to do is I will go back and I put clips in it because it will soften this up a little bit, so that way it's more easy to manipulate. So I'm going to do that so it's a little bit softer, and then I'm going to put clips. I'm going to just slide some clips in here all around, or maybe slide in some of my longer clips like this across it, just to hold it flat for a little while and let it cool down. Okay, I only did it for about 10 seconds on high, and it's already much softer. So now I'm just going to go ahead and roll this. So I'm going to right at the edge. Right at the edge of that vinyl. Like I said, I just want it to cool down like this because it'll make it easier when I go in and add my zipper. And then I'm going to go over to the other side, and I'm going to do the same to the other hole, all right? So I'm going to give that a couple of minutes to just cool down. Now, if you don't have any bigger clips like this, you could definitely use smaller clips like these, and I'll show you on the other half how I use these clips instead of these longer hem clips. All right. All right, so now that we've gone ahead and prepped our zippers, we want to go ahead and put our zippers behind both these pieces right here. So you're going to grab your two 6-inch zippers. Make sure you have your zipper facing the right way. Make sure you have your zipper facing the right way so that your head is facing up, not head facing down. Otherwise, your bag is going to zip down to close and zip up to open instead of zip down to open and zip up to close. But you're going to go ahead, and this right here is going to be going behind this right here. If it helps to use a double stick tape, you can do that. This is 1/8 inch zipper tape from Wawak. It's Hyper Stick. It is a common zipper tape for bag makers. I'm just going to put that right there along the edge. There's one side. Here will be the other side. I'm going to go ahead and slide these clips out. I'm going to peel off the protective film on both sides of the zipper. And then I'm going to lay this zipper behind this window and then line it up as best as I can with the middle. All right, so now that we have this in here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to top stitch all around this square to secure this zipper in place. There you have it. Your zipper is now fully installed. On the back side, we're going to be folding this over and closing it up. You can leave your zipper closed on the front. You're going to be folding this over. You're going to match up the 3 sides, and then you're going to fold your front out of the way as much as you can, and you're going to stitch all the way around. And now you can see on the back that we've got the fold over. We've gone ahead and stitched all the way around. When you're looking at it from the front, really against pocket from the front, now this pocket here reaches all the way over to here. So your pocket is essentially 7 inches deep. From here to about here. That's deep enough for a cell phone, some cash, candy, whatever you want to stick in there, chapstick. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with this other side. We're going to go ahead and put the zipper behind it and then stitch around. Same as before, you see the zippers on there, go ahead and zip it up. Go ahead, fold this over, and stitch around the sides. So at this point you have both of your zipper pockets done. They are both longer than the regularly prescribed ones that are in the pattern, but now they're deep enough to put in like a cell phone or something. Now, if you are going to be using Decaville, don't forget you need to cut out the same piece in Decaville Light if you're going to use Decaville. I am not going to be using any Decaville. You're going to fold your collar down out the way, and you're going to place the right side of the fabric of the top edge across here, across the top, and you are going to clip it down in place. Alright, so now that I've got my tape on there, I'm going to go ahead and peel off all the protective sheets. Now, I'm just going to start with the sides first, because I can put the sides down and then work my way towards the middle. And I do that because this is still, like, waterproof canvas just does not like to lay flat. So let me let that lay flat over the whole. You can move your overlay left or right to make sure that it's over the whole. And then fasten that side down. And then smooth over to that side. Flatten that side down. And now I'm going to slide those out. And I'm just going to reach behind the edge of here and peel off that protective strip. And just press that down right where it's at, because it's already in place. Do the same for this side. Reach behind this edge. Grab that protective strip. Go ahead and press that down. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and stitch down the overlay for the interior pocket. We're only going to stitch around the outer edge of this piece, and we want to make sure that we fold our lining for our pocket out the way when we do so. We do not want to catch that in the pocket. So now that we have the outline of our overlay sewn down, we're going to go ahead and use some thin double stick tape to go ahead and put our zipper behind our overlay panel. All right, now that's in there, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to stitch around the edge of this inner circle to secure the zipper. There we go. Fully applied overlay. Now to go ahead and close the pocket up in the back. So on the back side, we're going to go ahead and we're going to fold that pocket up. We're going to put clips around the 3 edges of the pocket and then stitch all the way around to close, the same way we did for the pockets on the inside of the front half of the clutch. Your pocket is finished and is closed up. You put that off to the side. Now to make the 2 D-ring connectors. Alright, so now that we've got our zipper basted on there, you want to go ahead and lay your front panel you want to lay it right side facing down, and you want to line up the top edge of this strip here with the top edge of your lining piece here, and you want to sew along at a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If it helps, fold your collar down out the way so that way you can pin these 2 pieces together and then stitch. Alright, now that those are pinned together, go ahead and stitch across at 1/4 inch seam. When the zipper head is right here, it's in the way, I'm going to go ahead and slide it down so that it's not in the way. Alright, I'm going to flip everything right side out. I'm going to press this with my hands. Use clips on the sides if I need to, and then I'm going to top stitch along this edge here with an 1/8 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to top stitch this edge here at 1/8 inch seam allowance all the way across the top of the bag. Alright, now that we've got our front panel assembled with our zipper, then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing to attach the back panel along with the back lining. So for the back part of the bag, I wanted my bag to have a little bit of weight to it, so I went ahead and added a foam interfacing that's fusible, although we know that fusible foam does not adhere well to vinyl, so I went ahead and sealed it in with 1 layer of SF101. Now that these two pieces are attached, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my seam allowance is folded up towards the top, and I'm going to stitch along the edge of this top strip with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now that my back piece is assembled, I'm going to go ahead and attach this to the back side of the bag the same way we did for the front. Now we're going to fold this back. And we're going to top stitch the edge of this panel along the zipper at 1/8 inch. Now that I have my bag exterior pieces attached, as well as my lining pieces attached, all that's left to do is we're going to sew the exterior and the interior pieces right side together. And we are going to leave an opening at the bottom for the bag to be able to turn. Recommended width is about as wide as this pocket is. You're going to stitch from here all the way around, all the way back down to the side. We are going to be pinning our D-ring connectors in place where they're going to go before we stitch it together though. You want to make sure that your zipper is pushed toward your lining when you're clipping it together. I'm going to put one clip right here to start it off. The instructions do say to have your D-ring connectors 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch from the top. Okay, now that we've got everything clipped together all over on the edge, your lining is going to be sewn together at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Your exterior of your bag will be sewn in at a 1/4 inch of a seam allowance. All right. So when it gets to the middle, you're going to have to make a slightly bigger seam allowance when you come from the exterior down to your lining. You're going to double your seam allowance width. You are going to make sure that you double stitch, back stitch a couple of times over your D-ring connectors just to make sure you have them in there securely. I do recommend that you hand crank over your D-ring connectors because sometimes when trying to sew a bag together with a lot of thick layers, people will tend to just try to power through, and sometimes that'll be the thing that will snap a needle. So my advice is to hand crank over these if you need to. Remember, your D-ring is going to be inside your bag. It should be between your exterior pieces, and your raw edge should be up against this raw edge. It says 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch from the top edge, so it's going to be 1/2 on top of the strap and 1/2 on the body, 1/2 on the top edge strap and 1/2 on the body. I'm going to hold it there in place. Put these clips back in. Get one of these type of clips on there. Yeah. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this side. Alright, I am going to start sewing on the lining edge next to this opening, and I'm going to sew around. And I will grade my seam allowances in where I need to. I'm going to backstitch twice just to hold that stitch at the beginning. You want to crank it slow as you're going over the transition from your lining to your exterior. Go slow. It is thick material under there. You don't want to fight your machine or break a needle. I will go all the way around once. I will come back to the connector separately after I've done the once all the way around, and I will go over it 2 or 3 times. And if you need to use a slightly longer stitch, do that as well. Almost. There we go. Past the connector. We'll come back and we'll reinforce that. Now the exterior of this bag is sewn at as a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I will be stitching around this bag twice. For the parts that are going to be stitched, I will stitch around them twice. With bag making, the final stitching to secure the closure of the bag, of the exterior and the interior pieces, going around twice never hurts. Just helps add more stability to your bag. And then I'm going to back stitch a couple of stitches. When you go back and forth at the beginning and at the end of your stitches, when you're birthing a bag, that does help keep your stitches together. So I'm going to go ahead and get my clips out the way. I'm going to go around this bag one more time. I am going to back stitch over the connectors to go ahead and secure them even better. When we flip this right side out, we are going to be using a hammer or a hard object to bend this part of the bulky seam allowance where the zipper tape is going to be coming out here at the bottom. But right now we're going to go ahead and just trim it down to be even with the rest of the bag. Alright, so here we have the bag already sewn together all the way around, ready to be birthed. We have our opening at the bottom. Before we birth it, we want to reach inside, reach over to the exterior, and give those connectors a good tug to make sure that they are caught all in the seams. You can see here my stitches a couple times on both sides. And this is a good time to clean up any of these wild strings too. For some reason, this waterproof canvas is fraying a lot. So I have a lot of little threads and everything hanging. I'll go ahead and clean those up before I trim this. But what I also want to do is on the corners, if I need to, I want to go ahead and put snips in my curves. If I need to do that as well, I'm going to go ahead and cut some of those. Sometimes to save me some time, I will use pinking shears and just use it on the corners here. They will help serve the same purpose. If you prefer to, you don't use the pinking shears all around. Look at that might not be easy to cut with the pinking shears, or maybe those 6 spots where the connectors are at. I'm just seaming up a little bit on the part that's still open, making sure I stay within seam allowance because I still need to leave enough of that alone so that I can close it when I go to turn this bag. Alright, and on the final side, I'm just going to do the pinking on just the corners. Alright, you're going to go ahead and reach through all the way to the other side of the bag, and you want to push your corners in. Now here's another helpful tip. If you are using vinyl, you can use a heat gun or heat tool to blow air into this. That will help soften this vinyl all on the inside before you go to flip this. This is what I typically do when I do vinyl bags, so give me just a moment. Now before this has a chance to cool down, you're going to want to reach in there now and birth your bag. What you want to do is you want to go to the corners. You want to push your corners in. That's the first corner. Come over to the second corner. Do the same thing. You want to push your corners in. You want to just roll this all into the lining half of the bag. And then you want to keep rolling through the lining in just a little bit at a time. Keep pushing. And then when you get a majority of the bag out, then go to pulling. All right. Go ahead and push the lining to the inside of the bag, all the way in. Make sure you pull your D-ring connectors up and pop your corners. But get that lining pushed all the way down in there so that this bag can go all the way flat. Go ahead and close that up. Go ahead and straighten out your pockets. If you need help, use a ruler. I would say, you know, some people might say, oh, I can just use a pair of scissors or something. You never want to do that with scissors unless you're using the dull end of your scissors, the handles of your scissors, but you don't want to take a chance and poke something you don't want to poke, all right? So I'm just going to use my acrylic ruler to reach in there and make sure that my pockets are lined straight. Everything fits down in there nice and snug. So now all I'm going to do, our bag is just about finished. All I need to do now is I just need to close up the inside of the lining, but you can see here that we have our inner zippered pocket. I'm just going to reach in here. I'm going to pull this lining out. I'm going to hold my lining so that I can fold in the seam allowance across the bottom. And I'm going to secure it with a few clips, and then I'm going to stitch to close it up. And when you close up your opening, you want to close it with about 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch. You don't want a huge lip for your closure. All right, let's go ahead and close that up. Our final bag is sewn together. All we have left to do now is to attach our handles. Remember to clip any loose threads you see. And then at the bottom of the bag, right here at the bottom on the seam, we want to make sure that we roll this so that our zipper is here. And then we're just going to pound this portion of the zipper to get it to the seam allowance to get it to lay flat. There you go. Your Ariadne zipper clutch is complete.